Okay, I think I figured it out. All right. I don't know. Maybe I can do a quick roll count here. Let's see who we're missing. So we've got Allison, Robin, Sarah, Alex, Catherine, Christina, Aaron, Laura, Marie.
I'm
Okay.
just stepping away from the computer for a minute. I just have to go give something to Matt for Riker. I'll be right back.
Okay. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to grab a bottle of water. So, actually, before I do that, I'll just let everybody know that we have 40 minutes, which now I don't know how it works. The clock ticks when I log in, or if it starts ticking from the time I booked it, but it was supposed to start at 4:30. So anyway, that means that we probably have less than 40 minutes now, but just keep that in mind. We're going to try to roll through this fairly quickly because we also want to have time to have some feedback. So we don't want to dominate this meeting with just us broadcasting stuff. That's not what this is about. It's so that everybody can be included. So let me go grab my water and we'll get started.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, and Robin, I'm going to make you co-host so that you can also accept people into the room if I'm on a roll and vice versa.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, I don't think I can. It says make host. So I don't know if I can make you a co-host. Are you able to see coming into the room?
No.
Hmm. If I do that, I think I relinquish the host role and I have to do a screen share. So I guess I better not do that. All right, I'll have to keep my eye on it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have some topics here. I've got some I'm going to address. Robin has some she's going to address. I want to first of all thank all of you for coming, carving out some time. It's next to impossible to find a time that works for everybody, so that's why we're recording it. Tried to pick the sweet spot where we don't have a whole lot of barn activities going on. But the reason that we're doing this is, well, there's many reasons, but I'd say it's the new year. We've got some changes. We're changing some of the patterns and the assignments for staff and how the horses are turned out and some of the processes that we're doing. And some of it's for safety reasons, some of it's because it's the time of year and it's getting colder. And we want to change some of those protocols around that. And some of it is because our horse ratio of boarders to Todd Hill horses is changing, our Lisa ratio is changing, staff is changing. So anyway, lots of changes and all good. So I think I'm going to start by passing it off to Robin. Let's see here. You want it, Robin? You want to just do a quick recap of the new border policies to make sure that everybody knows how to access that and can ask questions about it?
Yeah, sure. So, what I'm going to do, I think the easiest thing is actually I'm going to send all the staff members a copy of the new board agreement so that they can actually review it and understand it. But the biggest changes we made on it were let me see here. Basically asking all boarders to provide their own grain and do baggies, which is a topic I want to go over tonight anyway. And that we're not offering to feed hay unless the vet has actually prescribed them to need hay to be fed. So we're kind of prioritizing feeding haylage. But the biggest one was definitely the grain and baggies, which I know we do have a couple boarders who are not supplying the baggies as they need to. We're often messaging them, trying to get them to provide more. But those were the two biggest changes, unless Karen, you can think of any others.
But no, but I just wanted to give you guys some good news, which is I know we keep saying, oh, it's going to happen any day, any week. Now we're going to switch the feed room so we have a larger heated space. We actually have a contractor coming out this week and coming out tomorrow so he can assess what tools he needs, and he literally is going to start this week.
Yay.
Since I'm on that topic, I might as well just keep going with that one, then pass it back to Robin. During the days that he's working here, which is probably going to be about a 2 day block of how long it's going to take. 3 days, John says 3 days. He's not going to want any horses around that area. And so just anybody that's bringing a horse in to work with them, or you're bringing a horse in, or a farrier's working with a horse, needs to be in the front of the barn. It's just going to be loud and noisy and scary, and a safety issue. Robin, there was one more thing that we were going to talk about for feed, and that's what do we do? How should the staff handle it when they're going to mix grain and there's
Yeah.
grain missing?
So I find I'm noticing in the chat group, it's like every other day, it's typically Kayla's horses who are running out of grain. And we're having to message in the group, and then Tilly's having to reach out to the owner. And it's just a lot of back and forth. So I think what we're going to be doing moving forward is the owner will only be notified that their horse has run out of grain the on the morning of a business day. So Monday to Friday mornings, they'll be aware, which means if you're feeding on a Thursday night and they've run out of grain, you're just going to simply write a note on the whiteboard that says Frankie's out of grain or Sophie is out of grain. And then when in the morning when Tilly and Catherine arrive, they will see that note and they will reach out to the owner. The horses they might not like it that they're not getting grain. They might be banging up their stalls a little bit, but as soon as everyone's finished their grain and they're eating hay, it will be a forgotten thought. So they'll be okay if they're not getting grain for one night. But I just find it's a lot of back and forth in the chat group, and it's a lot of work for Tilly outside of her regular hours to be having to contact the owners.
And that brings me to another point, which is if you find that there's some boarders that are repeatedly asking you to do things for them, whether it's changing a horse's blanket or it's asking you questions that you don't, they're not just simple questions. Just really push them all back to Robin because they all know that they're supposed to be asking Robin these things. And I understand if there's something that's urgent and you're there and they're there and, like the farrier's coming and this one, is it okay if I bring my horse in because the farrier's here? Like, obviously those kinds of conversations you're going to have. But if you find that there's that awkwardness where they're asking you a question, just not sure that you have the authority to answer it, or you don't want to give them permission to do something that might not be allowed, then push them off to Robin.
Yeah.
We're also going to be changing some of the organization around the barn, like where the whiteboards are. We're going to be changing some of the horse turnout schedules so that, well, you've already seen that probably. Some of you have been working the last few days, that we're trying to keep it so that the horses in the main barn are turned out close to the main barn. So you're not walking back and forth. It's icy, it's cold, it's dark, sometimes with the evening shifts, and it's just safer to have, it just makes sense to have our horses closer to the barn that are living there. And then of course, some of our horses are going to start staying out, the boarded horses. I think we've got Forte and Henry who have to be separated, but they're going to stay out. Walter and Felix are now going to stay out.
Felix comes in at night, but Walter stays out.
Okay. Yeah, and so there's only what, 3 horses now in the arena barn?
Yeah.
So just Sendix and Kayla's horses. Okay.
Yeah.
And Nova.
Pardon
And
me?
Nova.
And Nova.
Yeah, Kayla's 2 horses and Nova.
Nova, 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I said Sendix and Kayla's 2 horses. I said Sendix, my brain was thinking Nova. And also in terms of trying to keep things functioning smoothly, like we think about, when I was doing the chores over Christmas, because I filled in a few times, as I'm doing my chores, I'm thinking, how could this be smoother? If I'm experiencing this, what's somebody else on our staff experiencing? And there could be a lot of things that you don't even think about changing or fixing because it's just the way things have always been. And so one example would be where I noticed that Fletcher was being separated from June for grain, and he was going in the little, the stalls by the barn, the outdoor stalls. Well, I don't know if you know the whole story behind Fletcher leaving the one of the paddocks a few years ago with the gate attached to him and running around the farm. But I just had flashbacks of that because those particular gates are quite large. Now I don't think we can do this anymore because Forte is going to be going into the paddock that Sophie.
Yeah, I was gonna say an option would be if they just if they're having to separate them briefly for grain, you guys can put Fletcher in Henry or Forte stalls because he's only going to be in there for about 5 minutes while June eats.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so often by the time we go to feed, all the horses are turned in. So because I was, because I wasn't aware, I was the one who put Fletcher in those little stalls, but now I just put him in, it would be Sendix's new paddock now. I put him there, or I put him in one of the tiny paddocks like that that Frankie's in, or that Iris was in. I just move him over to one of those paddocks because there's no horse, because those horses have come in.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could bring them in the barn, but it just seems easier to just put them in one of those paddocks. unless that's the wrong thing to do too. I don't know, but
No, I mean
that's what we've been doing.
they're honestly the same distance.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Whether
So
you
I mean,
walk to Henry's stall or you walk to Sendix's paddock, it's the exact same distance. So whatever, to each their own. It you guys can switch it up. I just don't think he should be going in those little
yes, and that makes sense. But that, yeah, I'm just saying what I've been doing now since that note came out. I've just been putting him in the next paddock over.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a good segue, Allison, into the process for evening staff and how we feed grain. Because of the time of year and how cold it is and it gets dark so early, I want to change and smooth out some of the process of bringing horses in and prepping the stalls and feeding grain. So we are making some staff shift changes, which you will see in a minute when I do a screen share to the calendar, and we'll tell you how to access that calendar, and Robin will talk you through what the color coding is and all that. But along with these staff changes, where Tilly's going to be on her own for more hours during the day than she has been. And so we're coinciding with that is also the cold weather, which means you have water freezing in the bucket. So for those reasons, we're not going to be asking daytime staff to load the stalls, to preload the stalls, like pre-prep the stalls. We're going to have them clean the stalls, bed them down, and have the buckets like ready. So meaning if there's not, you're not going to find a gross bucket with skunky water in it. It's going to be either an empty bucket or a bucket with clean water if it's not freezing. But the evening staff's job before the horses come in, so let's say from 6 till 7. So this is maybe is a 1 hour job, and it might not even be. We don't know till you go through this. We're thinking it might be a 45-minute job, but let's just say 1 hour. So you're going to be prepping the stalls, putting the hay or the haylage in place, and filling the water buckets. But then you might as well also put grain in the bins, because
Right.
what I found is when you are bringing horses in and then after you go do the grain, it's the horses are anxious and that makes you anxious, and then horses throwing their head around, they bop the grain out of your hand. Look, this has happened to me. It's the grain pin's gone flying, and so it's just smoother and safer and happy. Everybody's happier. The horses are happier doing it that way. And then that leads me to the next point, which is, okay, so the horses aren't going to take long before they figure out and they start remembering, hey, I'm coming in, I'm eating my grain. So they're going to be a little bit more anxious maybe as the days go on, getting used to this, thinking, oh gosh, I got to come in and get my grain. So we want to also have a new protocol, which is we would like 2 people to be responsible, like together getting horses in. And that doesn't mean that you are going to the same paddocks. It just means that bringing the horses in is a little faster. So if you have a horse like Sophie, that's a single horse, you don't need 2 people to bring Sophie in, right? But you might have somebody's going to get Sophie while somebody's going to get Felix. Because
That's
they
why
both,
we do it.
does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
that's why we do it.
that would be a normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 people would never go to get Sophie anyway.
But we've
Yeah.
learned the hard way that when we put it when we put a policy, we want it to be a logical, make sense thing. So if something like we don't want you to think that we're like that rigid that, oh no, it means that 2 people have to go to every single time. But
Right.
We
course.
say it because it's happened before.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's how-
Sorry, can I ask for clarification, and maybe I'm misunderstanding? So it's only horses that you would say are, say, hot, like Felix, that would require 2 people to attend
No.
them, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. That's possible.
No, what we're saying is, so say there's 2 people on a shift, and
Mhm.
say what you guys want to do is one person wants to load all the stalls while the other person starts.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
We're saying no, you guys are both going to load the stalls, get that done, make that a priority, and then together you'll start turn-in, so that instead of turn-in taking
Got it.
30 or 40 minutes, it's only going to take 10 or 15,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
also to speed things up, and here's again my personal experience. My fingers are numb. I can't. My glove got wet somehow. Getting dipped in a water bucket. It's frozen and wet, and I can't get the buckle on the horse's halter, done up. So I think that we're going to make this message to boarders as well. We want this time of year only all horses to wear halters in turnout, and they have to be safety halters, like with breakaway. Like they would break if they get caught in something. Because then it's safer and you don't have a horse like Frankie throwing up her head in the air or one of the other large.
Yeah, when it's dark out, you're not trying to stuff a halter on Nova and realizing it's actually gizmos, and it just makes it a little bit easier to get a lead line on them.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see, I'm gonna pass it back to you, Robin, if you want to talk about hay versus haylage.
Yeah. So I know that there has been a lot of changes with who's eating hay, who's eating haylage, and where are they turned out around the barn. And I know Tilly has a wonderful list done up, but Sometimes, again, when it's cold, you're in the barn, you don't have time to necessarily pull your phone out and take a look at the list. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the hay and haylage color coordinated when it comes to the turnout board and when it comes to the wheelbarrows. So we're going to have a new turnout board. We're going to get a larger whiteboard to replace the original turnout board. The larger whiteboard is going to be divided in half, and it's going to have AM turnout and PM turnout. So Tilly will take care of having those done. With that, we're going to get new magnets for all the horses, and there's only going to be 2 colors of magnets. I'm not sure what colors we're getting yet, but say it's pink and purple. All horses that have a pink magnet means they get hay, and all horses that have a purple magnet means they get haylage. The same thing will go for the wheelbarrows. We're going to be getting duct tape that matches the color of the magnets so that the wheelbarrows will have the handles duct taped with what color is haylage and what color is hay. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know sometimes I've seen people sniffing the wheelbarrows and trying to figure out, is this hay or haylage?
Yeah, depending on the bale of haylage we have open, sometimes it's actually hard to tell if it's a really dry bale. So this, I think, will just make it a little bit easier and a quick visual for people when doing turnout and feed.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. And
also-
Robin, you're on a roll. So some of the topics that I sent you by email, you want to just run through some of those real quick, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Yeah. Well, you already touched on, I have a little note here about turn-in, just about prepping the stalls before even bringing the horses in. So we've already touched on that. The other thing is we're going to be giving a bit more clarity on what tasks should be done during what shifts. So basically there's 3 shifts during the day. There's your morning shift, your afternoon, and your evening shift. During the weekday, Tilly and Catherine typically do the morning and afternoon shift. And then there's 2 people on for the evening. So we'll send this out in an email, but basically these are the tasks that are priority that get done during your shift so that we're not having to spend so much time doing things that could potentially wait, so that you guys aren't having to stay late at the barn either. We don't even have a list done up yet, but we will get one. But an example might be in the evening, staff, your priority is prepping the stalls with hay, water, and grain. A non-priority task would be sweeping the barn. Okay, so if your shift has come to an end, you need to go, the barn hasn't been swept, you can go, you don't need to do that. But a priority is making sure grain's made for the morning, stalls are prepped, horses have water, lights are off, electric fence is on. Morning staff, it would probably be a reverse of that. So we'll come up with a list of that, but I think we'll just give a little bit more clarity as to what needs to be done during what shift.
So can you guys see my screen? I've done a screen share.
Yeah.
Can you guys see that on the
Yeah.
calendar? Okay. So Rob, why don't you talk about what the colors mean on the calendar?
Yeah, so we have you guys can see some of the changes and scheduling here, but basically what we've done with the calendar is we've made people either green or red. And what we've done that so that the person in green is the supervising person, I guess, for the shift. So that because often if tasks aren't getting done or something's getting forgotten or there's a mistake made, we want just one person being in charge of at the end of the shift, making sure everything that needed to be done was done. And then the person in red is kind of their helper to do that. So that's what we went ahead and the green is based on either horse experience or they've just been at Todd Hill Farm for a while. They know our policy well. So that's kind of how we determine that. You can see Carolyn on the weekend is in gray because she has no one with her. So she's probably just going to be, picking some paddocks or work around the barn. So we don't necessarily kind of delegate that, but for morning and evening, at least there'll be someone in red and someone in green. Do you guys have any questions about that?
I just wanted to address a question or comment that Erin made in the chat, and she said, could we put duct tape on the stalls as well for the color of hay or haylage?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
No, I don't see why not either.
But we can put it right by the laminated stall sign.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'll take as soon as Karen gets me the duct tape and magnets, I will take care of making sure that that's done for you guys.
Now I can't hear.
You can't hear?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking to my son. He just connected me to his Bluetooth or his whatever. Anyway, now I'm like barely can hear you guys, but I'm trying to figure out how to get that. Sorry, I forgot you guys can hear me.
That's okay.
Can I just say one more thing? So with the staff, I did want to touch on the protocol around having friends, kids, husbands, partners come and help you on your shift. That is totally fine. They're more than welcome to come with you and help out during the shift. First thing is they need to have a waiver signed. So I will be making sure that there's lots of waivers printed off in the office. I'll get that done this week for you. The other thing is, even if they have horse experience, they are not a staff member or helper of Tot Hill Farm. And because of that, we cannot have them handling the horses or feeding the horses, but they can help out with lots of other things around the barn. They can be sweeping, they can be filling water, they can be raking up hay outside the barn, etc. But we just can't have them handling horses or driving any equipment. Okay.
Speaking of driving equipment, that was a perfect introduction to this topic. You may have noticed that we have a brand new machine. It's bright and shiny and clean right now, and we know it's not going to stay that way. But because it's a different size, like it's much larger and longer than the other machine, it's heavier but also lot longer. And for that reason, we can't safely bring it into the paddocks anymore. So that means it's going to have to be parked either beside a paddock, like the gate could be open, but it's so large it could just literally block where the gate is, or you could, back it into the back of it's partially in the paddock, but not the whole vehicle's in the paddock. And then we're also going to be really, really super careful about who is qualified to drive it, because it's like this, it weighs as much as a Honda Civic, like it's basically a vehicle. It is a vehicle, right? It's actually, you could get a license, not a license, a plate, and it would be road legal if you plated it. So it's not just one of those things like, oh, if you have a driver's license, you can drive it. You'd have to have a driver's license and also know how to drive it, because the mechanics of it are different than a car. One example is the parking brake. Like, you guys all have parking brakes on your cars, I'm sure, and we've all taken off, for 2 minutes with the parking brake on, or even 30 seconds, and you realize before you left the driveway, you have the parking brake on, because you can feel the car lugging, and you can like, well, how come my foot's on the gas, but I'm not moving very fast? Well, because my parking brake's on. But with this new Kubota, it doesn't feel the same way, because it's such a heavy, noisy, loud machine anyway, that with the old Kubota, the parking brake was completely stripped out. Like, it didn't function anymore because so many people were driving around with the parking brake on. John, you wanted to say something. John's looking over my shoulder, but he wants to say something.
No, not too much. Just the weight of the damn thing is around 30, probably 3,200. So about the same as a small compact car. So just keep that in mind. And, it's like driving your car with no door and no seatbelt. So, just always remember how much the damn thing weighs. And I think everyone knows to run it in 2-wheel drive, and then if they get a little stuck, go to 4, and then after that, come ask me.
And if you put it in 4-wheel drive because you're worried about getting stuck, you have to take it out of 4-wheel drive when you put it away.
And it can't be shifted on the fly. It's got to be stopped.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
And yeah,
That's what it.
and it should be plugged in at night. If it's below freezing, it should be plugged in at the back of the barn. Does anybody have any questions on the new Kubota, the new machine?
The plug's found in the rear right-hand side.
The plug is on the rear right-hand side, which is not the same place as the old machine. Now, one more thing about the use of the machine. So our old machine, a lot of our staff was using it to make their lives easier. And I get that, because water buckets are heavy, and we don't want you to be like breaking your back with some of the heavy work. Even when if you've got hay, well, I was going to say hay nets, but we don't have any horses with hay nets. But sometimes you're just lugging heavy things back and forth, and we're using the back of the Kubota to do so. We're going to ask you to not use this machine to do that with, because it's such a long machine that if you were, for example, to take it to deliver water to the arena stalls, getting it turned around in that small, tight area, like you're going to sideswipe something. It's just going to happen. So instead, what John, I think he said he's going to do this. John, can you confirm this? He's going to give you access to the little golf cart that we have, which is easy to drive and safe and silent. It's not great in heavy snow, but it's fine on gravel and,
on clear days.
On clear days, it's fine. So we will keep that parked down by the barn as well. So that if you need to hump water somewhere, back and forth, or even empty buckets, or however you want to do it, like it can be your legs for you. You don't have to feel like you have to break your back. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Okay, Robin, what else is on our list here?
I didn't have anything else on my list. I just wanted to mention about shift changes. So with this new calendar, I think it actually, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it has a different login link than the old calendar. So if that's the case, I will make sure that you guys have access to this.
Well, just wait 1 minute, Robin. We don't want, you're the only
So
one that's going to be able to edit this.
I know, but you can still give people the inform. You can share it to their email so that they can view it.
Yeah, so this is a new calendar. I don't think it's one that they have.
Yeah, so I'll share it. I have everyone's email, so I can share it directly to their email. And when you guys get the email, you'll open it. You won't be able to make changes to it, but you'll be able to see it. So what I wanted to mention with that was shift changes. You guys are responsible for finding someone to cover your shift, which has always been the case, unless you're like going on vacation for a week or two and you give us lots of notice. But if it's a last minute thing, you guys typically are messaging back and forth in the staff group about changing shifts, which is fine. Continue to do that. But my goal is to keep this calendar really updated. So as soon as someone is covering your shift, I need you to text me or Facebook message me privately and let me know what day they're covering your shift and what shift exactly they're covering so that I can go and update the calendar, because I often am not looking at the staff group enough to keep up with the shift changes, okay? So
Yes.
I'll put my phone number in the staff group too, so that you guys can all save it to your phone. And yeah, either text or Facebook message is fine, but just to let me know, Aaron is covering my shift on Thursday night.
Yeah, I saw Catherine was asking if you could let boarders know that grain will be in the stalls at said time. So right now, the boarders are aware that we feed our horses around 7 o'clock, right? So the only
Actually, I thought the new rule was that we weren't supposed to be feeding till 8. So, um,
there's no rule about the time to feed. It's just I just assumed it was sometime in the evening, so I just threw 7 o'clock out there.
I think doesn't the contract say 8?
Well,
Because I thought, and I'm only saying this only because I thought that there was some boarders that were getting cranky that that grain was willy-nilly in the evenings. So if we were feeding before 8, that they were getting pissed off. And
I've never heard that. I did not know that boarders were pissed off about that, to be honest. The thing says 8, the same as it says 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
It shows up at 8 in the morning. So
Yes, right.
Don't get fed till 20 after 8 or even 8:30.
Because
So
sometimes I feel like I'm like, well, like, because I thought it was like 8, kind of like, so like in the back barn, for example, there's, someone who I was worried to feed their horses before like 8 p.m. in fear of getting in trouble, or them getting like, getting angry because, they're showing up to ride or whatever, and their horses were fed at 7 instead of 8, or their horses were fed at 7:30 instead of 8. So it was like we needed to make sure that those horses in particular were fed at like basically 8 on the nose or 8:05 or whatever sometime, because they were upset
I had
about
no
it.
idea that people were that
Yeah, I
upset.
think a solution would be that you could start doing turn in. Like you've got the stalls all prepped. Start doing turn in at 7:30. I will just send an email to the boarders that says we will now be feeding horses grain between 7 to 9.
Well, yeah, and I think that is totally
Yeah.
perfect, because I mean, if we're starting turning it somewhere between 7 and 7:30, I mean, and with this too, I mean, we have to keep in mind weather. Like in the winter, if it's miserable out, the horses don't want to come in at 7:30. If
Yeah.
it's miserable, then the horses want to come in maybe at 5.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it's, or I mean, maybe not 5 because there's no one there, but like, I mean, I'm all on
6.
my nights, I'm there. Like if I see horses distressed, even if I'm not working, I'm going to bring them in, because if they're upset and because it's like wind is whipping in their face and it's snowing and it's cold, well, they have to come in before the grain maybe gets put in their stalls. Because in the winter, I mean, in the summer it's totally different, but in winter it's unpredictable and we don't know what the weather's like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll just send them an email.
But I think if we say your horse is going to be grain somewhere between 7 and 9, that would be amazing, because then
Yeah.
it takes the onus off us that your horse has to be fed at 8 on the nose or not before 8. Like that's a challenge
I don't want
sometimes.
to have it go right till 9. I think that we should
Well,
say,
no, not 9. Okay, but even somewhere between 7 and 8:30,
yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, 9 is too late, obviously, but like, because you're supposed to be done your shift by 9, so you're not going to be feeding someone at 9. But somewhere between 7 and 8:30, your horse will be fed. And I mean, a horse doesn't need to be fed every day at the exact same moment
No,
in
exactly.
time. Like that's ridiculous to even think that.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll let them know as well, though, about bringing the horses in, because if they're bringing a horse in to groom to get ready to ride, they're going to want to know so they can put the horse on cross ties and not give the horse free rein at the stall if they've got grain in the bucket. But the time between having the grain in the bucket and the horse physically coming in is probably about a half hour.
Oh, exactly. Yes, 100%.
And now we're running out of time. I knew it was going to happen. I got a little pop-up that said we're running out of time. So I'd like to open it up to anybody that has feedback, questions, or any suggestions about how things are currently being done or changes that they'd like to see or whatever. Don't all talk at once.
There was one of the agenda items, and maybe it's no longer part of the topic, but it mentioned work to ride. I don't know, is that something that needed to be discussed?
Yes. Mom, you need to talk about the punching in, punching out.
All right, thank you for my
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk to that I just wanted to clarify with everyone, which I think everyone already knows, but I think it's 6 hours for a lesson and then 4 hours for an independent ride.
That's right. That's never changed. It's always been like that.
Yeah, I figured it was, but anyway, I'll let you touch on the.
Yeah, so I purchased a fancy machine. It's a time card puncher, and it's going to go in the office, in the warm heated office. It's going to sit on the counter there and be plugged in. It's got to be plugged in. I've tested it out. John's tested it out. It works great. I'll do a quick little video on how to use it, but what we're going to do is each person's going to have a time card. Each time card is valid for the whole month. The first 15 days are on one side of the time card. The next 15 days or even 16 days are on the other side of the time card. The machine is smart enough that it'll tell you if you put it in wrong, because it's notched a certain way. It'll only accept it one side or the other based on the date. And you'll hit a button in, chick, chick, and then a button that says out, chick, chick. And then you no longer have to send me invoices. Okay, so some of you are being paid every 2 weeks, and some of you are being paid at the end of the month. However you're being paid, it's my responsibility to collect those cards and pay you and return them back to their holder. There's going to be a holder with everyone's card. So the cards don't go home with you. They stay in the office beside the time card machine. And I just think it's going to be a little bit simpler process for keeping track of who's what, where, when, and how. I think that is it. There's obviously going to be some follow-up with some clarification emails, in terms of your roles and the shifts that Robin said, what your tasks are. We expect there'll be some feedback from that. So when you get the email outlining this is your shift, which, you already know your shift, you can see it there on the calendar, and here's the priorities and responsibilities within your shift. If you find, this is why I was hoping to get some feedback, and feel free to jump in right now, but if you find that we're asking you to do more than you physically are capable of doing in the time that you have here, we need to know that, because number one, it could be that we're giving you too much to do, or number two, it could be that our systems are broken and something that is taking you far longer to do than it really should, and that's our fault for not having things streamlined.
So I have a question, and it doesn't need to be addressed to the whole group, but in terms of timelines, like now I noticed Saturdays Alvin's not working. I found that out yesterday. So we have me and Sarah's new, so maybe isn't as efficient as someone like myself who's been doing this forever. And then it's just Carolyn on by herself in the afternoon. So to me, I feel like that there's a disconnect there somewhere, that there's may not be enough time to get everything done for the night staff, because also I'm supposed to work 4 hours. Sarah's supposed to work 4 hours. We both were there. I mean, I was in at 7:30. I didn't leave till later, but I did a couple things myself. But I was there from 7:30 until probably 12:45 working, and then Carolyn came in early, but so I guess I just worry about like us getting all that stuff done. If I don't know exactly what time Carolyn's supposed to be off, but I guess I worry that there's not enough on a Saturday now. Alvin's such an amazing. I don't know if he's on the call, but he's a really hard worker and does so much that it's a detriment to have him gone on a Saturday.
So with you guys in the morning, there's 2 people on from 8 till 12 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Is that enough time for you guys to get feed, turnout, and stalls done?
No.
Not cooking, but just stalls.
No, it's not. And I move fast.
Allison does. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Allison does twice the amount of work that I do, for sure, and is run off of her feet. And it's still like by the skin of our teeth, we get that done.
And only the main barn.
Yes, that's just the main barn. That's not even including the other barn.
Now, I wonder if that's going to change with more horses staying out at night, though.
Well, no, but because that was the horses staying out at night. Because then we also are supposed to be doing the run-ins every day.
No,
for
no,
those
you're not
horses.
doing run-ins. You're not doing run-ins anymore. That's why Alvin's switching to his number one job is he's the king of run-ins. That's all Alvin's doing is run-ins.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The only run-ins that should be done every day are the ones that have horses overnighting in them.
And
Right,
I still don't
And
think
not Todd Hill horses.
No, I know, but there's 3. So there's 3 run-ins, then there's 3 stalls. So Carolyn did the 3 stalls in the back barn. She did the 3 stalls in the I think she did the 3 run-ins. And I'm not all exactly sure, but but we still both stayed later on Saturday to just get the main barn done and feed, hay, water, turnout, yada yada yada. Like
we have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying like we can talk about this
we're going to need
independently.
I also I don't know. I'm not convinced that even horses staying out that their run-ins have to be done every single day because they don't. A lot of these horses they go into their run-in and they may or may not poop in there. Like it's different in a stall. Their horse is captured in the stall. They have to poop in the stall. But with a run-in, it's much larger, and we're not always seeing that horses are staying in those run-ins.
Right.
But I want to see how, and we've only got 1 minute left, but I want to, here's something else that Robert and I were going to say. I'll just say it now. We know that there's going to be changes, and we know that it might not be completely comfortable because you're used to doing things a different way. But what we're asking is that you try it for a week or 2, and then we will revisit it. So that we can see how smooth or how awkward things are. And we are the first to admit, in the past, it's happened as well, that we've made a change we thought was for the better, and then we found out, no, that's not good. We're going to go back to the way we were doing things.
I think that's excellent.
Anything else you want to add, Robin, as we've got less than a minute left?
No, just that we will definitely be summarizing this in an email for everyone, including not just the tasks that need to be done in the shift, but the priority tasks, the tasks that are non-negotiable. And then there's so many other things that I think we're doing a lot during the day that don't necessarily need to be done if you're running out of time. So we will touch on that as well in the email.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.